Welcome to Front Office Pros. We are heading into the fantasy football playoffs, believe it or not, Joe, going into week 15. But, Joe, you and I have bigger fish to fry because we're going to be talking about dynasty moves to make heading into the 2024 season.
Hike!
So my first trade for target, Steve, I'm going to go with running back Chase Brown. Over the last 2 weeks, he's been a little more involved in this Bengals offense, and I've been pretty impressed. I mean, he had a 54-yard screen pass touchdown in this game today, and I just like his burst and his quickness, honestly. And with Joe Mixon not going to be a part of this, Bengals backfield next year, I think he's got a good shot to be a part of this Bengals running back. Whether it's the starter, time will tell. But either way, I think he's going to be involved, and I've been pretty impressed with him. And I think it's somebody that could possibly get at a pretty decent price. Just looking at the trade charts, you got guys like veteran like Jamal Williams, even Joshua Kelly, Mostert, Gainwell types ahead of Chase Brown, and honestly, those guys in their point in their careers, I think in Dynasty, you'd rather take a shot on Chase Brown than some of those aging veterans.
Yeah, when it comes to Chase Brown, I remember during the combine, you saw the burst that he had during those drills. That's when he first caught my eye coming out of Illinois. Thought he'd have a bigger role with the Bengals. Really, it's been Joe Mixon's show, but of late, he's been kind of more involved in the offense. He was, I believe, starting on the season on IR, dealt with an injury. Now he's starting to get kind of sprinkled into the offense, and you're starting to see that burst. I'm with you. Joe Mixon, I don't think will be on the roster next year. I believe he's going to be a free agent. He's rumored as a cap casualty now, I think, over the past 2 off seasons, especially last off season. You and I didn't think he was going to make it, especially with all the legal trouble he's had over the past 2 years. I believe he's around 28 years old, or he's getting up there. So to me, I think he doesn't have much longer. So that means Chase Brown gets the starting role. My only thing against your point on this is he's only, I believe, a 5th-round rookie. So what precludes the Bengals to go ahead and draft a running back in the NFL draft or bring in a free agent? It's a huge free agency class for running backs. You got the likes of, now who knows if they'll make it to the market, but you got Jacobs and Saquon Barkley and Pollard, all the guys who were tagged last year, including some others. So it makes sense. So you're going to see a lot of, possible running backs kind of, musical chairs. That's my only thing with against Chase Brown, but it's an interesting flyer. And like you said, you might be able to, would have liked to have done it a few weeks ago, but better now than never.
Yeah, I mean, you do make a good point. He was a 5th-round draft pick. The Bengals could move on from him. I do think it would be through the draft. I don't really see them paying big bucks for a free agent running back. They have guys like they could bring back like a T. Higgins and stuff, and they've signed Burrow. Chase isn't going to be cheap either, so they do have to try to save money elsewhere. So I think it would be with the draft, and even Tyler Algier was a late round pick as well. Bijan comes in, he's still involved in Atlanta. I think Chase Brown would still be involved if they do bring in another back.
Unless they bring in Clyde, Joe, like I was talking about last week.
That guy stinks.
Here's the thing. Regardless, it's nice to have a backup running back because in the event of an injury, guy gets inserted right in. So don't blame me there. So my dynasty trade target that I'm going to be talking about here is wide receiver Rashee Rice. I was skeptical of him and the selection, to be honest with you. Coming out of SMU, to me, I was expecting a huge production bump for Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. It was really the debate: is it Toney? Is it Moore? And you and I would talk about it. But because of how slow Moore, did, and especially I think just based on the history of Andy Reid and rookie receivers, they don't really acclimate very quickly. So we weren't expecting a lot from Rashee Rice. Well, needless to say, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney have done absolutely zero, and both receivers' fantasy value has completely bottomed out. So for me, when Rashee Rice, he's really starting to become a weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm starting to believe it may be time to double down and go ahead and acquire this guy. Against the Buffalo Bills, he had 10 targets, 7 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Over the past 3 games, he's had 10 targets, 9 targets, and 10 targets. So his targets have started to dramatically increase. And in my view, it's what will life be like post Travis Kelce for the Chiefs? And I think it could mean a lot for Rashee Rice. I think he could be the guy to develop with Mahomes. I don't know if he'll be a true alpha guy, but he has looked really good. According to Draft Shark's trade value chart, some players I'd be willing to trade to acquire him will be the likes of some older veterans like Devontae Adams and Deebo Samuel. Some other younger guys I'd be interested in trading away would be Drake London, Jordan Addison, Nico Collins, and then also T. Higgins.
You're all ready to give up on Jordan Addison, huh?
Well, I just think that Rashee Rice has showed more promise than Jordan Addison. And who's going to be the quarterback for the Vikings? Kirk Cousins is going to be out of there. To me, you've got I know that Mahomes is going to be there, and we know depending on who the quarterback is, there completely can change the landscape of an offense. So to me, I like having that security blanket.
Yeah, to me, I mean, Rice hasn't showed more promise than Addison. I think you're wrong there. But the one advantage you do have is the question at quarterback. That's really what separates the two. Addison has made phenomenal plays in that Vikings offense, especially when Kirk Cousins was there. Obviously, he's taken a dip, with Dobbs and stuff. But Addison's shown a lot in his rookie year.
How could you say that? I mean, because I think that Rashee Rice, has produced more than Jordan Addison has this year.
I'm not so sure about that.
All right, well, check the facts. I'm pretty sure he has. Because I know that he has been recently on the uptick, and Addison has been.
I think it's recency bias.
It could be recency bias, but I'm talking about looking in the future. Travis Kelce, he's been talking about the idea that he's going to retire. Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore are nobodies. So who's it going to be? Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's not in the picture. And then you got Justin Watson. I mean, these guys are not going to be long-term solutions.
No, obviously, but the Chiefs are going to bring people in as well. They're not just going to roll out with this current absolute crapshoot at wide receiver. Yeah, so Jordan Addison's got 56 receptions, 713 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
Okay, what does Rashee Rice have?
Rashee Rice has 59 catches for 663 and 6. So, I mean,
it's very comparable.
It is close, but
closer than you were making it out to be.
Well, you were saying Rice has outperformed Addison
of
Addison
late.
No, that's not what you said of late. You just said as a whole, which I knew was incorrect. I mean, it's just recency bias. Yes, I believe Rice is on the up and up, and I do like him. But like you said, he can't be an alpha.
Can Addison though? You already have Justin Jefferson on that roster. Most likely, he signs an extension.
Right, but I mean, at least he has other people. I think him and Jefferson can coexist, and they showed that with Kirk Cousins. But obviously, with this, Kirk Cousins going down has completely affected this whole Vikings offense.
I get that, but you're going to have a vacuum that gets taken out when Kelce retires. All that, those targets.
When is Kelce going to retire?
He's talked about retiring this year.
He's
going to be going on the Swift tour.
I get that the talks are out there, but I don't think he's going to retire after this season. I think he's got still something left in the tank. And I can't see him going out with potentially, if this Chiefs season ends in, disappointment, I can't see him going out like that. I mean, look, Jason Kelly's talked about retiring for the last 2 years, and he's still around.
Jason Kelce, yeah. I mean, yeah. I hear you, but maybe they both ride off in the sunset.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would have thought Kelce, winning again, maybe he rides off last year, but I think he's still going to be there.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
So my next trade target is going to be running back James Cook. He's a guy that I really liked coming into the season. The only concern I had was just, how the Bills were going to utilize him. They're not a team that has, stuck with the run. They really like to pass it a lot. Even this past game against the Chiefs, he only had 10 carries, but he did have 5 targets, had a nice long reception for a touchdown. I really just like what I've seen out of James Cook this year, showing quickness, burst, and the ability to break the tackles. And with the kind of change in offense, seems like the Bills, obviously they've ran the ball more, just utilized different backs, but I think it's nice to see them at least trying to run the ball. Which gives me a little bit of confidence. So Chase Brown didn't have high draft capital in the 5th round, but James Cook was taken in the 2nd round. So it gives you a little bit more confidence with a couple of years left on his rookie deal. And based on where his trade value is, He's up there with the likes of Derrick Henry, the Rashad Whites, Alvin Kamara. Even a little higher, you got guys like DeAndre Swift. So those are definitely some guys that I'd be looking to, possibly trade away for James Cook.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I actually agree with you on that, Joe. Ever since Ken Dorsey was relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator and Joe Brady has come in, Joe Brady, I feel, and maybe not, this is just me watching the games. I should look into the actual, data, but it seems like the team, that offense is going through the run a lot more than it was before. Cook is becoming a more of a staple in the offense. I want to say James Cook is right now top 5 in rushing, I want to say, in the NFL. So you see the burst, you see the quickness. He's a great receiver. So he's a dual threat running back. I mean, anytime you have that in fantasy, that's huge. So I'm with you. I would trade away all those guys. I mean, John J. Swift's another one who's a free agent at the end of the year. Done okay, in Philadelphia, but depending on if he's not there anymore, that could change things drastically. So I'm with you. You've got 2 more years on a rookie contract with Cook. You'd really, Latavius Murray's, older. He's going to be gone next year. Who knows what they're doing with Fournette, and Ty Johnson's just a filler. So they may bring us a complimentary back, but James Cook's the guy.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, if you're a James Cook owner, you're frustrated watching that Chiefs game because I really feel like the Bills' lull in offense in that second half was just them not getting James Cook the ball. He was heavily utilized in the first half. The offense is humming, and then they try to use those other backs and just missing those explosive plays that Cook was bringing early on in the game.
So my other trade target's going to be running back Kendre Miller. On the year, Kendre Miller has had 28 attempts, 83 rushing yards, and no rushing touchdowns. In the receiving game, he's had 10 targets, 9 catches, and 111 receiving yards. So you may be asking yourself, well, Steve, why would you want him? Well, I think he could have a Rashad White type of bump next season. What I mean by that is I think he's going to get a lion's share of the opportunities. And Joe, with me, it's all about opportunities. I think Alvin Kamara, believe, is going to be 29 years old heading into the offseason. The Saints are going to be over the cap by $75 million. Now, Joe, you and I know that's just it is a number, but the cap is malleable. It's fluid. They can make the moves to be able to get under the cap. But I think one of the moves they may make is if they don't rearrange Alvin Kamara's contract, I believe he's a cap casualty. I think they could cut him. They would save near $12 million in cap space. Otherwise, his cap hit's going to be a whopping $18.8 million for a 29-year-old running back. I just don't see that happening, especially in the event that Dennis Allen is no longer the head coach. I think his seat's pretty hot. If he's no longer the coach, you're looking at a complete change in the offense. So for me, for Kendre Miller, it's kind of a roll of the dice because if they do have a regime change, it's not a guarantee that Kendre Miller will be that regime's guy. He was injured, so that he hasn't really had a lot of opportunities. I'd be willing to trade away the likes of Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, and this will get interesting. I'd be willing to trade Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon. For Aaron Jones, I think I could get Miller plus. For Mixon, I might be willing to do a trade because I'm not really even sure that Mixon will be able to be on a team next year because, like I said, he won't be on the Bengals. We've talked about him already. And then where's he going to go after that? Anytime you have these older running backs, you start to see that drop. You see Melvin Gordon, you see Leonard Fournette, you see these other type of running backs. Austin Eckler is starting to show signs of slowing down. He's a free agent next year. The running back market's going to be completely bananas in the offseason next year.
Yeah, it definitely will be. You mentioned Kendre Miller. I think he's interesting, but, one thing that would give me a little pause on doing that would just be I'm concerned with all these injuries he's had, and that's why he hasn't been really able to get on the field. He was a guy that I really was interested watching his college tape, mentioned it to you, and really you didn't really had watched him until I mentioned him, but was excited for him. But I just think as a rookie already battling the injuries, I think that could be tough. But if he does come back, and especially I will like him, if Kamara, they move on from Kamara, that seems like a logical move. If Derek Carr is still somehow that quarterback, I mean, we see just how much he loves to dump the ball down. You're right. He will be kind of that Rashad White player. That's what Baker and Tom Brady we've seen, just dump it into, Rashad White, and he's really that big volume play.
He's the type of guy that you're shooting the moon for. This is a roll of the dice. You're hoping that he ends up getting that starting role. He might not, but to me, there is a path for him to do it. That's why I've held him on in your league for so long, Joe, as a possible keeper, in the hopes that it can happen in a redraft keeper league. But from a dynasty perspective, that other owner, I think it's possible you could pry him away, because if you drafted Kendre Miller, you're probably not very enthusiastic because of the very reasons you said. So, but I think it's willing. You're willing to take a shot on it and see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely think the risk definitely could be worth the reward you get if you do take that shot on him.
So those are some dynasty moves to make heading into the 2024 season. We'll be back next week to talk about some other dynasty trade targets. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.